Welcome to the land of no easy answers. Our world, though more connected than ever, seems to have forgotten how to connect. Everywhere you look, the disconnect is obvious, from nature to the people around us, and even within ourselves. This is Alex Knight, and thank you for joining us as we attempt to unravel the mysteries of the mind and your universe. Now, let's meet our panel. Over in one corner is Kristin Rumohr.
You.
Hello there. And in the other corner, Mr. Aaron Stewart.
Party.
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about sleep. And I promise I won't try. Well, look, 30 seconds in and Aaron's already completely fallen asleep. Oh, no, he isn't actually. His eyes are wide open.
Damn it, he flipped right to that video. That's the problem with doing the video ones of this.
That would be a very strange way to sleep, completely with your eyes open. I don't even know if that's actually possible. But yes.
Well, we're actually going to learn today that dolphins apparently shut off half their brain when they sleep. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to be there is going to be some kind of science component to it. Otherwise, this whole episode would be just completely and utterly ridiculous. So, Aaron, take it away.
Like every other episode.
What does science tell us about sleep?
Well, and that's, we're going to throw an article up here, basically just kind of going over the idea that they never, they're constantly unlocking new things that animals can do that we always just, anthropomorphized as only humans were capable of. And now sleep is one of those things that they're finding out that animals actually do. What? Crazy, right? I mean, yeah. But let alone that they're finding that it's not just animals with brains, but animals that have basically no brains are still illustrating the sleep pattern, basically. So the idea that, an animal, they found roundworm that I believe had 302 total neurons in its entire brain, and it apparently sleeps. So,
wait, so there are animals that don't have brains?
Well, that's the next one that they're trying to get into, right?
Okay.
Where like sponges and such, smaller organisms that don't, that contain everything but a brain, basically.
Gotcha.
They're trying to figure out how to test those kind of things. How do you test a sponge to figure out whether it sleeps, right? I mean,
right.
And I'm sure it, eventually we'll get to that point. We're like, holy crap, really? They do? Which again, just, speaks to our limited framework that we've been operating for this, the entirety of most of human existence, right? Mm-hmm. Where we get dropped here and we're like, yeah, I know what's going on. It's cool, right?
Yeah, there's a lot that we don't know, obviously.
Oh, of course.
And, like a lot of even this podcast here is based on the theory that, I had heard a while ago that, essentially everything is fact can essentially be turned over in your brain every 10 years. And
I like
accelerating.
that.
And accelerating as we go, right? So everything that you got taught in school, those textbooks have probably been trashed by now, right? I mean, I'm speaking to my age right now, but, the further back you go, and, the more that information is probably suspect and worth going back and re-examining as to whether that's worthwhile in this new framework that we find ourselves in.
But isn't that the beautiful thing about science, and it's always a recurring topic, we always come back to this, is about that, what we may know now, like you said, is fact. But the beautiful thing about science is that all this stuff is constantly evolving. And we have to keep an open mind. We have to be willing to, I suppose, subvert our own current thoughts and be willing to to accept that maybe what we previously thought we knew was correct. It was not actually correct, in fact. And so things are completely different. So that's one of the reasons why I like coming on here every single week with you guys to talk about this stuff, because it is interesting.
Well, you make a point there of correct, which I don't know is necessarily the framework that we need to attack these things. Because again, I think that gets people's hackles up.
Sure.
Right?
There's no right, there's no wrong.
Exactly. And that means that you were wrong. Incorrect means that what you were taught was wrong. And that's not necessarily true. It's just what we knew at the time. you know, and we like to hope that we're operating on the best information that we have now versus, you know, I don't know, a book they wrote 2,000 years ago or so, or, you know, not even 2,000 years ago, but we like to think that it somehow was brought from this, right? Like, and that's supposed to be our framework to operate our lives today. It just seems a little myopic, you know, in that, you know, we operate under completely different rules, and the idea that you can generalize life into these simple sets of 10 commandments, man, no problem. Right? It's just, I mean, come on. Right?
This is why I never understood, and I won't try to derail the conversation too much about sleep, but this is why I've never understood how somebody can go their entire life with such rigid thinking with respect
that's Kristin's
to
question there,
you know,
for sure.
Is how can you go through your whole life thinking something like the universe is a certain way and not be open to new possibilities? That is just so limiting. And I think that just limits us as a species. How can we expect to evolve and grow and not destroy ourselves, you know, by having this rigid thinking? That's a problem, right? And this plays into the whole anti-science movement that seems to be boiling to the surface, you know, now that just nobody wants to wear masks. There are people that think the pandemic is fake, that COVID isn't real, that it's just utter nonsense. I've never seen so much fucking stupidity.
Well, I think rigid thinking goes on both sides, right? So there's people that can play too heavily relying on science as absolute fact. And then you have the converse is true as well of, you know, people that say all of it's just bullshit. And reality, it always lies in the middle.
Yeah.
And like the central tenet to the scientific method is we're ultimately always trying to disprove what theory has been put out there. That's what science is, right? So nothing should ever be taken as absolute. Exactly. So I applaud people that question, for sure, because that's what we should always be doing is, you know, let's try and disprove that, right? And then the more times you try to disprove it and the theory holds, it gains more and more credibility. So slowly you can start to think, okay, well, there's a good chance that this is maybe then, you know, not the absolute truth, but, you know, something we can rely upon as a general consensus. But yeah, it's definitely just gotten so out of hand and like I said, both sides of it. I see very intelligent people, you know, scientists that are just rigid in their thinking as well.
Yeah.
So it's,
and
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and Aaron too, on the subject of sleep, right? There are basic things that we know, like, you know, they always say you should have a minimum of 7 or 8 hours. And I was reading, there was an article, I don't know if it was the same one you were reading, about some of the myths that saying, they said about how if you could sleep for 4 hours and you think you may feel okay, but what you don't realize is that lack of sleep is actually affecting your cognitive functions in ways you may not even immediately realize.
Absolutely.
And maybe in some small ways that add up, and depending on what you do for a living, that could be a serious problem. Can you imagine if you're a firefighter or a police officer, or if you're you're in the army, you're in the front lines in enemy territory, and you're a sniper, and you're afraid for your life, and you're on 4 hours of fucking sleep? What is that going to do to your decision making? Right? And this even goes back to the episode about why do people make bad decisions? Why do we go decide? We make the decision. That is a judgment call that you made to go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go to work. That was your fucking choice, and you decided, why do we keep doing this stuff? And so I'd like to know, and I'd like to know more about sleep, more than just that's another question. Why is it that 7 or 8 hours seems to be the magic number for sleep? Why is it not 12 hours? Why is it not 6? Like, what is it that we know about sleep that seems to be that is the magic number?
Well, it's
Kristin?
quality of sleep too, right? So we kind of get caught up in the number, right? And we're a pretty big mammal, right? So it's going to take a lot of time to repair, which is what sleep is for. But it's quality. So if you wake up constantly, if you're tossing and turning, then arguably, even if you sleep for 8 hours, you might not get the same quality as someone that slept for 6, but they slept soundly through. So that's where it gets a bit murky with all of the advice on how much sleep. So I think the standard 7 to 9 is because that allows for different levels of sleep. So within that 7 to 9 hours, you are likely going to get that 3 to 4 hours of restful sleep that you need.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did a podcast on this on the Learn Me Something podcast. Go check it out. It was awesome. And basically neurologically, what's going on is your brain actually shrinks up to 60%. And that basically in the spaces that are created, there's what's called glial cells that actually go into those spaces and are basically trimming off the dendrites of your neurons. And essentially, dreams are essentially your brain pulling up memories that either happened right now or that are related to things that happened right now and deciding whether to make those into long-term memories. So the glial cells are essentially coming along and trimming off the parts of that memory you don't need anymore. Okay. And so this apparently happens in 1.5-hour cycles, where your brain goes into REM sleep. It has, I think it's, 20 minutes to get into, there's a space in between, and then another 30-minute deep REM cycle. Okay. And then basically, so what they also, like, one of the myths of sleep is that you have to get that 7 to 9 hours, and that's not true. You can break it up into 2 parts if you want to. There's a lot of different ways of getting that amount of sleep, but it's more a matter of giving your brain time to shut off. And so those 1.5-hour chunks are apparently the more important part. So if you're having a nap, you can apparently break a nap down either into a 10-minute cat nap or an 1.5-hour sleep, depending on kind of what your brain requires at the time. 10 minutes apparently gives your brain enough time to actually go through that cycle of kind of compressing the brain a little bit, allowing it to consolidate memories, and then you basically fill it back up. And then, so if you're trying to cram for a test or something, 10-minute sleep is a great way of just taking that little break, allowing your brain to consolidate that information, and then potentially grab some more. Your brain has a magic number, 7 plus or minus 2. And that's the number of things that you can remember before your brain just goes, all right, I'm done. Right? And so you need that sleep time to consolidate those memories. So again, going back to the 1.5-hour cycles, that's where the 7 to 9 hours is basically you get 3 of those cycles at night, which is basically, I think, 6.5 hours or so. But then the spaces in between those cycles are a little murky because, again, you can have that. You can wake up if you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can, wander around the house, do stuff for an hour or something, and then go back to sleep, and you're still going to get the same sleep.
So theoretically, if someone wanted to spread that out, let's say over the day, so they were asleep, 1.5 at night, and then they have an 1.5 nap, and that would give them the same benefits as to someone that sleeps the whole night through. Yep.
Einstein used to do like 10-minute cat naps, where he would harness that, where you give the brain enough time to kind of power down, consolidate some memories, and then move back on to the next thing.
Is that what they call a power nap when people refer to something as a power nap? Yeah, because I've tried 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes I find for me, I always have to set a timer is the max. Yeah. Because I've tried sleeping for half an hour and that's just like, no, I'm too far gone at that point. Exactly. I start to get into
like I said. So that's where it's using the brain. You want to set your alarm for an 1.5 or 10 minutes. Right? The half-hour cycle gives your brain enough time to get into the deep sleep so that when you're trying to pull it out, it's going, I don't want to. And that's why it's hard to get out of that cycle. If you allow your brain to complete that cycle, that 1.5, it gives you that half an hour of deep sleep where you can actually go, right? Then you go and wake up, you'll find it's much easier to pick yourself up after that. Okay. Right? And that's where, again, like that research, just knowing how our brains operate. Oh, it's an 1.5. Oh, okay, I can work around that. Right? But if you didn't know that, you'd be waking up after half an hour going, why am I always so fucking tired?
Yeah.
Right? But that's what it is. It's just, it's our brains are wired this way, and that's just part of our rhythms right now, right? And whether that may change, whether, new research later on down the road will find that, we've kind of evolved past that, who knows? But at this point right now, apparently it's that 1.5-hour cycle that's the key to sleep.
Yeah. That's right? Very interesting.
And so it's just trying to work around that. So again, Learn Me Something podcast, go check it out. It was awesome.
Yeah, and Kristin, I'm just curious on your end with patients, is sleep something that ever gets brought up in the discussion, either on their end or something that
Always.
you bring up?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's usually part of the general intake process. It's the first question I ask is, how do you sleep?
Right.
Because it is so important.
Oh, sleep
Foundational.
deprivation will absolutely ruin you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose sleep is so foundational for how we function. You can't function properly without that. So if you're not getting,
phenomenon about fighting sleep, which is really interesting, right? It's called sleep procrastination, which is a very real modern thing. Yeah. So it's, you actually feel exhaustion that you do need to sleep, but for some reason you feel pulled towards other things. Right. And I think a lot of it's going to tie into most of our discussions going back to kind of technology and social media and things like that. But you can be exhausted and yet sit there and scroll for another hour, so it's the sleep procrastination. You're somehow giving up something essential for something non-essential because that dopamine hit to your brain is more important than getting rest and repairing. And it's a cycle that you fall into. Right. And you start to then crave it. So if you're training your brain for a dopamine hit right before bedtime, well, guess what's going to happen? Every night, it's going to suddenly get a craving, and it just kind of spirals from there. It's definitely a very important thing I ask all of my clients.
I'm not going to lie.
That's
I'm guilty of that. I'm sure we all are to a certain degree that of the procrastination thing. I've done that where it's like, why am I fighting my body? I'm letting myself get sucked in to social media or something that's really not that important. Like, why not just give in to the sleep? Like, your body is trying to tell you something that you clearly need rest, and you're fighting it. And when you actually say it out loud, you realize how fucking stupid it is what you're doing.
There's an interesting, it's an emerging body of research about this phenomenon. And they're kind of positing, the researchers, that it's a way of reclaiming some control, right? Because a lot of our lives are spinning out of control for the most part. So for your day to day, you feel like, oh, you have to go to this job where maybe you don't make the decisions. You have to do this. You have to follow the rules. And this sleep procrastination is a way to say, this is my time, right? I might be wasting it, but I control this.
Yeah.
It might not make any sense. Logically, it's absolutely ridiculous.
But that's the problem with the brain, right? Brain will justify that ridiculousness, no problem.
Yep.
Right? And once it's created that loop, it's very easy for it to just go right back to that. Well, it worked the last time, so maybe it'll work this time. Right? We go back to, I brought up the pigeons so long ago where they locked them in a cage, and after the weekend they found that they all had little rituals with the switch. Did I mention that? Right. And it's that same thing where we create our own rituals inside our head because it worked once. And so that must be what I'm supposed to do this time. Right. Right. Regardless of, different situation, completely different people, right? Like all sorts of different variables that are completely different from what you tried last time. Brain will just happily lead you down that path, without any thought to, what it's going to do to the rest of you. Right. With the sleep procrastination, it becomes a real issue of, what's your sleep ritual? Right. And if a lot of that is playing on your phone, I would suggest maybe that's the cause of most of the problem. Right. My sleep ritual was always pick up a book. And lately, now that I've been playing on my phone for the past little while, I have noticed a real difference in, where before when I would read a book, I would often wake up with an hour and a half later or so with the light on and the book still in my hand with the bookmark on, right? But, with the phone, you don't really get that. You're awake until you shut that thing off.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a real difference in how your brain is processing things, right?
Yeah.
Because that phone is keeping you awake, whereas the book is putting me asleep.
Yeah. Actually, you've inspired me. It's been a while since I've read a book. I think I'm going to go to the library right after this show and pick up something.
I'm reading some Orson Scott Card right now, and
you're reading
Steven
what? Sorry,
Erikson.
Oh, Steven
Orson
Erikson.
Scott Card. Yeah,
okay.
Steven Erikson's amazing.
Oh
wow.
Yeah, prolific.
Holy crap! 1,400 page books.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you actually read that shit, dude? That's awesome.
I've read some of his books, but it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, and he's branching off in different directions now too from the original. He did like a 12 book, again 1,500 page per book series, and then concluded that one and has now moved on to other. And it's just like, wow, yeah.
You know,
Anyway,
I will say one thing about being distracted with devices at night. There are a lot of studies about how the blue light from our TVs and from these devices, from these screens, is actually affecting sleep. And and actually many times I've tried, like I do things on my iOS devices where after sunset the screen goes to auto dark mode, which helps. And then actually I've turned on I've got some automations set up on my devices where after 10 o'clock at night it reduces the white point balance, the color scheme. Like the white and blue gets reduced and the screen goes more orange, right? So like there are things you can do on these devices. I mean, the better thing to do would be just pick up a book and don't read. I mean, you can read on a Kindle these days because it doesn't affect your eyes in the same way that a LCD screen does, because those Kindles have e-ink, which it looks like you're looking at paper, so it doesn't have the same kind of terrible effect. But yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of studies now finding that all this technology that we're using is actually adversely impacting sleep. And you've got people that are addicted to these devices looking at things, lying in their bed with these things, with this freaking blue light hitting their face, inches from their face. And yeah, that actually does affect your sleep. And people wonder why they can't fall asleep at night. It's because they've just looked at this bright screen.
Well, the part that got me on that research is that it's even if your eyes are closed. Right? Like your eyelids, apparently, if a blue light happens to shine in your room, your eyes can apparently still see that through your eyelids, and it will affect your sleep. That was the part that really got me, right? Like just wait,
which is why if you sleep with your phone next to you, your sleep is disrupted all night. You will not have a restful sleep for that very reason.
Well,
and if you didn't know that, you'd be going, why can't I sleep? I just have this phone thing. I don't understand.
Why am I anxious all the time? Why am I tired all the time?
Oh, wait, you mean it was just, and all I have to do is just put it under, like turn it face down so that light isn't
I will say this. I recommend if people, I know I don't understand why people don't do this. And I see this all the time, but if you're going to have devices charging on your night table next to where you sleep, you should really, I don't know about Android. I'm sure Android has this feature, but this has been around for years. Turn on do not disturb mode. So after a certain time at night, my phone won't even turn on. Okay, if you send me a text, I get any notifications, they're all suppressed. The screen stays black, which is what it should be. Like after 10 o'clock, I don't want to see that shit because I don't want to be interrupted. I don't want my sleep to be interrupted, right? So that can help. There are things you can do with your devices that you really should take advantage of, because that stuff is there to help you.
I mean,
right?
Ideally, just don't even have it in your bedroom in the first place.
Well, yeah,
right? Like remove the temptation. But if you can't do that, then that's
I think that's harder to do for a lot of people. I think that's harder to do for a lot of people because a lot of people's alarm clocks are on their phone, so they got to have it there. Otherwise, they don't hear it. Right. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, there are things, look into it. Do not disturb mode. I'm sure Android has a similar feature. You should turn that shit on because, you don't want that stuff like after 10 o'clock at night. Otherwise, you're just not going to sleep with notifications.
It's funny because I get, the excuses I get, from a lot of clients. I don't want to use the word excuses, but you know what I mean. It's this idea of constant availability, right? So it's, okay, what's the worst, what would happen if you turned your phone off? Well, I might miss a very important phone call or text, or, someone might be in the hospital, all of these reasons that we give ourselves for being dependent on these devices.
Yeah. I got news for you, fuckface. You're not that fucking important. You're not fucking important.
I personally have my do not disturb set from about 10 o'clock at night till about 9 o'clock the next night.
Yeah.
Nobody got that one? Okay, that's just me. That 1 hour window, 9 to 10, that's all I get.
Hey,
that's all you get.
You know what? That's not far-fetched. I know people that do that because they do not like notifications, period. Right?
Oh, my phone's always on silent. I don't remember the last time I turned the ringer on.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Good
always.
for you. Yeah.
Right? Because then it's when I'm checking it, it's okay. Now I dedicate this time and this space to checking whatever notifications I have or emails or messages, right? But I think by having it on, a part of your brain is always on alert.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, we know that during the day, of course, part of our attention is always kind of waiting for that ping or, buzz, whatever. But that carries on into your sleep as well.
Does. Yeah, it
Right?
And there's
So
a
if
lot
you
of
have
research that, especially as adolescents, you're much better off to have your phone outside of your room when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Like completely separate from you, so that you have to literally just shut your brain off of that stuff for a little while, just so that you get used to being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I think is part of the problem now, is that we don't teach kids how to be people without this shit. Right?
Yeah.
So therefore, if the only person I know how to be is with it, any alternative is anathema.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's going to immediately make me go, nah, versus something that, no, it's cool. I don't like, it's not who I am. It's just something I have as a tool. And I think that's the difference. If we set our kids up to be like, no, look, buddy, like I do this for your own good, right? Like, I think that's the hard part is no, it's for your own good, right? Fuck you, Dad. No, really.
And it kind of goes back to like a sleep routine we were talking about.
Yeah.
And what popped into my head there is sleep training children, right? Sleep training babies. Yeah. This is kind of what we do, is to program from a young age, like, okay, now it's time to get this baby ready to sleep all night. So here's a routine, right? We're going to give it a bath and, the lights will be turned down. I'm going to read a story, sing a song, blah, blah, blah. Training the brain to, develop this type of routine. And we kind of forget about it as adults. And especially now, I mean, if you talk to anybody and ask, what is your sleep routine? They're probably going to look at you like you're insane. Right? Like, what do you mean sleep? I just go to bed, Yeah. But we do need that time.
Excuse me. Yeah.
When even teenagers, where they've now found that, most of the reason that teenagers are the way they are is because their sleep schedule completely shifts during their teen years. And so now they want to sleep from, a earlier time to a later time in the morning. Right. So they're now finding that maybe starting school at 8 o'clock in the morning might be really detrimental to these kids. And because their brains are literally not capable of catching up to them until 10 or 11 o'clock when their brains have gone through their full sleep cycles. As their brains, I made the point to my son the other day, like during the teenage years, it's like a cocoon. Where inside a cocoon, that caterpillar literally liquefies its entire body and then reforms itself as a butterfly or moth or whatever is coming out of there. Right. And I just go, that's exactly what kind of happens inside teenage brains, where this person that we're all, this is what I am, this is who I am. Now your brain decides to just liquefy itself. Right. And then what forms out of it is this supposedly you. Right. And I thought that was just a great analogy for just what happens inside a teenage brain and how you're looking at this person as a completely different person because they are, right? Their brain's literally liquefied inside their head and they're now trying to figure out who they are from there, right? Which again, I think speaks to a lot of this. And if part of that is sleep deprivation, because they're not aware that their cycles are different and so they need this extra sleep for their brains to actually, and now they're being forced to go to school and trying to cram information into their heads.
Yeah, that's always a big problem, right? The cramming and the pressure, in college, university, to some extent in school, high school too, but more so I think in college and university, the whole cramming thing, right? I mean, that's not good.
Well, that's why Adderall is a thing, isn't it? I mean,
right, and then you're constantly.
I was definitely a crammer. I was the last minute.
People are always, it seems, sleep deprived because when you're young, you're in your 20s, you want to go out and party and you want to be able to fit all these things in your life, but then you're also having to cram, and so you're taking caffeine pills and pumping all sorts of other stimulants into your body. Like, that's not good either, right?
No,
I don't think so.
I mean, is it good? Is that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, more chemicals. That's definitely
more chemicals.
That's the answer here.
More chemicals. That's the answer.
At a younger age. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So have we actually learned anything from this research?
Well, I had learned a bunch of stuff. Again, check out the Learn Me Something podcast. Yes. It's great. But yeah, like again, the idea that animals now sleep is again this supposedly revelatory thing that oh my goodness, we just figured out that animals sleep.
It turns out they have thoughts.
Brainless animals, because we always knew animals sleep. Like we've all seen the dogs sleeping and having a dream, right? But brainless animals, like the article that you posted, Aaron, about hydras. Right? They're essentially just a network of cells.
Yeah.
And then to find out that they actually sleep. It's fascinating. So it's not just a higher function of mammals.
Yeah.
Which then kind of lends the question, like, how does it get initiated? And, you're talking about if it's initiated by neurons, but then you've got animals that maybe don't have any, like a sponge, right? Well, okay, if they can sleep, then this kind of throws a wrench into everything we thought we knew.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I love about science, right? Like, it's supposed to be a framework, and the idea behind science is that this is our best theory. At no point is science ever right or wrong, right? Science is always just like, this is our best theory. If you got other information, bring it along, right? Like we may go, meh, right? But in the end, over the course of redoing it over and over again, we're going to have no choice but to go, I guess that's the truth now. Right. And I think that becomes a real problem for people. Right. I think that's why science is now having this problem. Isaac Asimov actually talked about how America had what he called a cult of ignorance.
I've heard of this.
Right. Built around this idea that you're better off to be stupid and ignorant and not know these things. But that's the thing. But like, and let alone venerating people who exemplify exactly that, which you can see play out in America, and everywhere for that matter, on a daily basis. I mean, Trump was like, what could, like, seriously, and just this idea that, I completely lost my train of thought there.
That's
actually,
okay.
So we I was there.
I do need to make a more concerted effort to listen to what my brain is telling me, and listen to my body. Right, my brain hates it when I don't pay attention. It really does. Yeah,
they really do. They like attention.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. We've numbed ourselves a lot, right?
That's right, Alex. Listen to me. This is your brain.
Read a book.
Is there any anything else from that article? By the way, what was the source on that article, Aaron?
That was Quanta. I think it's in there. Okay. We can post that up. Yeah. Because again, like, and it's great because it goes into like even the evolution of sleep and how apparently before we had these brains, apparently there's still evidence like cockroaches sleep apparently.
Okay.
And so they're just finding that the lower and lower forms that they keep studying, fruit flies have a sleep cycle apparently. And again, just this idea that we were given dominion over this earth and we are the best thing that's ever happened, and so we get to do whatever we want to, and the animals can just suck it. Right? Like, it just seems
not the best attitude.
Not the right way of going about this. No. And so I just feel like there should be some, like understanding between us and the animals that, hey, wait a minute, you guys are more like us than we like to, think. We're maybe not as evolved
give more credit
and perfect as we like to give ourselves this extra credit for. And maybe there's lessons to be learned from them that we're just not listening to because we're just too busy being us.
Yeah, it does really make me question our species and how actually, like how intelligent we actually are when you've got people that think that Hillary Clinton is running a child molestation ring out of the basement of a pizza parlor, or that Bill Gates is planning on.
Was real.
Yeah, he's like Bill Gates wants to transform the world into lizard people. You can't take the vaccine; he's going to turn you into a lizard person. I don't know where this shit is coming from. I really don't.
I do know where it comes from, and that's even
it's the internet. But I mean, I don't know who's starting it.
Well, no, I mean, there's authors that it's been
people are writing books about this.
Well, actually, oh yeah, dude, it's been there's industries around this whole idea of the lizard people, and seriously, it's real. Yeah,
there always has been platforms to put it out there. It's just with the evolution of the internet, is everyone can now feel important, right? And you can amass a huge number of followers that you could never do before when you're just standing in the village square on a soapbox spouting out nonsense.
Mm. And some of that nonsense is helpful in ways, right? Like I look at the flat earthers, and they've actually, proven our point for us repeatedly. They've done numerous experiments that proved our point and proved us right and proved them, But again, like the idea that they were, trying to do science is actually commendable. And that's where, again, it's not a matter of discouraging them from thinking, right? But to try to find those ways so that we can actually have a healthy discussion about these things without it being a problem of attacking your, like, especially if there's something that you've invested any kind of, social credit in, you're going to be especially, not interested in examining that with any real, critical view.
Gotcha.
Right? If all of your friends, if anytime you say anything to the opposite of whatever your social group is saying, and you immediately get stomped on, and right, like, of course you're not going to say that again, right? Like, whether it's right or not, whether you believe that or not, you're going to make that construct for just to be happy there, So
yeah, that's very true, and it's more difficult than I think.
Yep.
When one person in a group of people starts, spouting all sorts of nonsense, I think if the other people don't buy into that, it makes your life way more difficult. And I think you got to have, like, the reason I think why a lot of people believe in conspiracy theories is that they're finding these communities. They're associating with people that are reinforcing this crazy shit, right? Because if none of your friends bought into that, I think it would suddenly feel like you're talking into an echo chamber, right? And maybe you start to reevaluate, like, maybe I'm the crazy one because no one else seems to be buying into this, right?
But it's the difference of, calling them crazy or telling them that they've been led astray. And I think
but they've led themselves astray. They're reading this shit.
That's the problem with the brain. The brain doesn't care. Right? Like, brain will grab whatever theory it deems to be credible, and will just run with that until given a sidebar to exit from. Right? And that's the thing. So you create these loops, you reinforce these loops inside your head until you get a chance to get out. So again, it's not a matter of stupid, because we all have this capacity to be led down these merry paths.
Sure.
That to anyone outside would go, what kind of a fucking moron
You're
are
being
you?
more charitable than I am, but
again, I just look at the fact that, if any one of us has the capacity to believe in flat Earth, then we all have that capacity. And it's not a matter of calling you stupid. It's that you've been led astray. You have information that isn't factual. And as soon as we present you with the facts, we should be able to have this conversation of, oh, shit, that was, wow, really? Oh, we know this now? Oh, okay, shit, man. Nobody told me that. Right?
I think it's also having compassion and understanding that
the
other person
I was just
thinks
gonna say
the exact same about you.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the thing, it's perspective. From their perspective, you're the idiot for not believing this.
Yeah. You're right.
And so it's, again, a matter of trying to find that common ground. Like, I got a bunch of stupid shit that I believe. Maybe you can help me out with that. Right? Like, and that's again, like, it's a matter of compassion and finding that common ground of oh, that's your stupid, this is my stupid, and how do we get around this and not feel stupid about it.
I don't think it's ever a matter of trying to convince the other people why they're not necessarily wrong, but faulty in thinking, right? It's more just an understanding that you think this, I think that. Neither one of us can say that it's absolute truth that we hold. So, okay, knowing these two different viewpoints, how can we just interact as human beings?
And this is why I usually start these with, this is the best information we have as far as I know it. Right? And that's where, you talk to a lot of people like, no, this is the way it is. And they go, okay, well, where's your research? And they go, what? You wanted me to prove it to you. Oh, no, that's just what I believe. And then you go, but no, you just told me this was truth, fact, you had proof. Oh yeah, well, it's right, and there's a disconnect there between what is actually right? And I think that's the problem. Like if you're willing to bring me facts, I'm willing to listen. But if you're just going, that's just how I feel, I have to go, sorry, buddy. Like, we have better information. We've done studies. We have pages of pages and 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 pages to say otherwise. If you could produce one page to say that this is true, I'd be happy to read it.
Yeah, I think, and we're running out of time on this, but I think that's probably a great way to end this week too, and thank you for bringing Kristin for bringing up the compassion thing, because I think sometimes you were leading into it, right? And I think
just got there faster.
We're all better off being a little more compassionate. I think that's something I need to work on as well, because maybe if I did look at it from a different perspective, as opposed to, oh, you're fucking stupid, you're an idiot, as opposed to just, like coming at it from the other way, that you were led astray, like you said, Aaron, right? Mm-hmm. That, like maybe that's the right foot to put forward to communicating with other people if we're going to make any kind of concerted effort to get out of this nutty situation that we're in, right?
I've used the outro line a few times of, like, we're all fucked up. Let's be fucked up together.
Yeah.
Right? Like, realistically, why not? Why wouldn't we all just try to help each other out of, oh, you're fucked up, I'm fucked up too, eh? Right? Like,
let's all be fucked up.
What's your thing, right? Like, oh, you like that? Cool. Okay, wow. I can't get behind that at all, but right? Like, but you do you, right? Like, and that's where, again, we all have these little quirks and things, so why not help each other out with them and try to celebrate those things that are worth celebrating, right? Because they're there. And if we just focus on the negative, guess what? It'll only be negative, right? I like to focus on the positives of humanity. Like, we built all of this. I mean, some of it needs to be torn down and reassembled. But for the most part, I look at this as a positive venture that we've been working towards, and I see real hope for the future. So.
And I don't see any hope. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, go get some sleep. Maybe you'll be less grumpy then.
Good idea. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you very much for listening. That's all the time we have for this week. If you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified when these episodes go out. We release new content every Tuesday and Thursday. And yes, we haven't forgotten about those of you that prefer the audio-only on-demand version. We don't care where or how you listen or watch this show, as long as you're paying attention. And we do want to hear from you, so please do drop a comment. Let us know what you want us to maybe talk about. Maybe there's something you've been thinking about that would be an interesting, illuminating conversation. Do let us know. We're also on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much everywhere where you get your podcasts. And of course, social media, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Just search for the Subvert Pod. It's the same exact username across all those platforms if you'd like to reach out there. I don't think I missed anything, so until next time.